Good morning.
Oh, you're not on.
Huh.
Are you?
Good morning.
I wish I could say I am glad to be here.
I wish the circumstances were better. How is Mr. Settlage doing?
Much better, much better. I talked to him this morning. He sounded good, so hopefully they will release him today.
Oh, he was in the hospital?
Yes. Mhm.
Oh, damn. Well, how are you doing then? Muted.
I am doing well.
You okay? Good.
Yeah.
Examiner.
All right, good morning. Sorry for the technical difficulty there. I was getting a streaming through my earpods through a different device. And I don't think you all wanted to listen to Jason Isbell this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Although Jason Isbell anytime is a great thing to listen to. This is our final day of evidentiary hearings in this show cause proceeding in case number 19-00018-UT. And we have two witnesses remaining to testify and then to deal with post-evidentiary matters, including briefing and any other post-hearing submissions. Before I start, I'd like to indicate that the Attorney General's counsel, Gideon Elliott, is excused from the hearing this morning. He has a sick little one at home. I hope that his 2-year-old is feeling better very soon. So,
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Thank you
there
very
you
much.
are. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I didn't know if you'd get my email in time, so I just thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And is there anything else preliminary this morning before we turn to Pnm's last witness? All right, Ms. Twilliger, would you please call Pnm's final witness?
Thank you, Hearing Examiner. Good morning. Pnm calls Stella Chan. May the witness be sworn.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Can you state your name and title for the record, please?
My name is Stella Chan, and I'm the Director of Pricing for Pnm.
And you supervise Mr. Michael J. Sutledge, is that right, Ms. Chan?
Yes,
And are you adopting what has been marked as Pnm Exhibit Sc7, the direct testimony of Michael J. Sutledge with corrections?
yes, I am.
And do you understand that what's been uploaded to Dropbox includes the corrections in Mr. Sutledge's testimony?
Yes,
Okay. Are there any other changes or corrections to that testimony?
no,
And your review of the testimony for purposes of adopting it, to the best of your knowledge, are the answers true and correct?
yes,
And if we asked you those same questions today, would your answers be the same?
yes, I will.
I'd move for the admission of Pnm Exhibit Sc6, please.
Is there any objection? Hearing none. Pnm.
Sorry, can I
Excuse
just
me.
make my standing objection for the record? I know it's been overruled to the portions outlined in my motion in limines.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This is Kelly Gould for the record. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Hearing that objection, which has already been ruled upon, Pnm Exhibit Sc-6 is admitted.
And Ms. Chan, are you adopting what's been marked Pnm Exhibit Sc7, which is the May 18, 2022 rebuttal testimony of Michael J. Sutledge?
Yes,
Are there any changes or corrections to that testimony?
no,
And in your review of the testimony for purposes of adopting it, are the answers true and correct to the best of your belief?
yes,
And if I asked you those same questions today, would your answers be the same?
yes, they will.
I move for admission of Pnm Exhibit Sc7, please.
Are there any objections?
Kelly Gould for Pnm area. I would like for the record to note my standing objection to the rebuttal testimony of Mr. Sutledge pursuant to the motion in limine I filed earlier in the case.
So noted.
Hearing Examiner, I'm not sure that the motion in limine to rebuttal testimony covered Mr. Sutledge's testimony.
Oh, you're correct. Thank you. I apologize. That's correct. No objection.
Hearing no objection, Pnm Exhibit Sc-7 is admitted.
I tender Ms. Chan for cross-examination. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Twilliger. Let's see. Up first with Ms. Chan. And Ms. Chan, thank you so much for filling in for Mr. Sutledge.
You're welcome.
It's nice to see you again.
Nice seeing you.
Thank you. We have WRA, Ms. Beatles. You have 10 minutes reserved with the Pnm witness.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Chan.
Good morning.
So, Ms. Chan, would you agree that Pnm proposes rates and the commission approves rates?
Yes,
And would you agree that the commission is the body with the authority to set Pnm's rates and not Pnm, right?
yes,
And would you agree that it is up to the commission to decide whether a bill decrease should not be implemented now in order to avoid the rate shock of a potential increase later, right?
Can you ask it again?
Okay, so you would agree that it is up to the commission to ultimately decide whether to avoid rate shock by not implementing a bill decrease now in order in light of a potential increase later.
So in a rate case proceeding, the commission ultimately have the authority to decide what rates are just and reasonable, and that will include considering gradualism and rate shock.
Yes, and ultimately, I think we're saying the same thing, but let me just like rephrase it to make sure. And so that ultimately it's up to the commission to decide whether to avoid rate shock by not implementing a bill decrease now in order to avoid a potential increase later.
Yes.
All right, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beatles. CCAE and Prosperity Works. Ms. Lynch, you have reserved 60 minutes with this Pnm witness.
Thank you, hearing examiner. We'll see how long this may take. Good morning, Ms. Chan.
Good morning.
My name is Kara Lynch, attorney for CCAE and Prosperity Works.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Do you know who Prosperity Works represents?
Why don't you tell me so I have a complete understanding?
Okay, Prosperity Works is a long-standing nonprofit in New Mexico that works on behalf of low-income New Mexicans. And Coalition for Clean and Affordable Energy advocates for that clean and affordable energy on behalf of all New Mexicans. I know that you're here on behalf of Mr. Settlage, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so would you have reviewed any other testimony aside from Mr. Settlage's?
No, I haven't had a chance to do so.
Okay, so one of the expert witnesses that CCAE submitted testimony on behalf of was Noah Long. He's a national leader in establishing energy policy, both in New Mexico and nationally. I really think you should review his testimony, or someone at Pnm should. He outlines the history of the abandonment of San Juan units 1 and 4, and goes through the implementation of the financing order, and why the financing order provided the established and agreed upon framework for Pnm to issue the bonds alongside abandonment. And then I also recommend that you read Prosperity Works.
Ms. Blanche,
Yes.
that testimony is in the record. Do you have a question for this witness?
Yes. For this witness, I'm wondering, Ms. Chan, do you know what energy burden is?
Generally, yes.
Can you provide your understanding of what that might mean?
That means is the cost of the energy as a part of a household's income is a significant portion of a household's income.
Okay, So in determining rates for customers, the commission must take into account all of the customers in New Mexico's territory, correct?
Yes,
And the standard it applies is both a reasonable and a just standard.
correct.
Okay. Could you please turn to Ona Porter's testimony?
Can you give me a second?
Sure.
The response testimony dated May 11th?
So yes.
Okay.
And it looks like there aren't page numbers, so we'd have to refer to the PDF page numbers. If you can go to,
Ms. Lynch,
yes,
Ms. Chan's gonna have a paper copy, so you're just gonna have, she will not have a PDF page number, so you're just gonna have to help her find the page.
okay, thank you. So I was wanting you to turn to about page 7 or 8. It has figure 4, energy burden for census tracts in Pnm service territory.
Is that the figure 1
Figure 4.
Figure
or 4? Okay. Okay, I'm there.
Okay. So can you provide for us the or could you read up above, across the entire service area, energy burden ranges from 2.4 to 8.9%. Lower median household income correlates to higher electricity burden. And in Pnm's territory, median incomes up to 39,380 range from 4.5 to 8.9. That's a significant amount of people, correct? Experiencing energy burden in Pnm's territory.
And hearing examiner, I'm not gonna object, but I mean.
that question. It looks like I am actually morning. So I'm sorry. Did you have an objection or what did I miss? Is it just literally froze on me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Lynch is asking about testimony that Ms. Chan said she didn't review. Now, I understand this is a unique situation. She tried to get up to speed as much as possible. So I'm not objecting, but we need to put this in the context that Ms. Chan has not had a chance to review all of this testimony in advance of this hearing. So we might just have to take a few moments for her to look at the context of the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, hold on a second. I have real time and I'm reading the transcript. So that didn't freeze up on me. So I'm just going to read. But there's no objection, right?
I just wanted to put it in context. There's not an objection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Significant amount of people, correct? Experiencing energy burden in Pnm's territory. That's the question, right?
Yeah, there is a significant number of Pnm's customers experiencing energy burden.
That's the testimony of Ms. Porter, which was stipulated into admission. We understand that. Thank you, Ms. Lynch.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to provide context for Ms. Chan.
Can I take a minute to read the whole questions because you quoted the beginning of the page. So
I quoted the sentence that explained figure 4.
yeah, can I just read the whole question, the Q&A?
Yes, you may.
Yes, you may, Ms. Chan.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So knowing that there is a significant number of customers in Pnm's territory that experience the energy burden, are you at all aware of the effect that the pandemic had on low income customers in Pnm's territory? Were they struggling at all to pay their bills at this time?
I don't have personal knowledge, but I'm sure that just like everybody else, the pandemic impacts the population. So I'm sure that low-income customer would have been impacted.
Okay. Now I'd like you to turn to Mr. Sutledge's rebuttal testimony,
Okay.
which is Pnm Exhibit Sc7.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you to look at page 4.
Yes, I'm there.
At the bottom of page 4, Mr. Sutledge includes a table.
Correct.
And that table, includes some dates and some actions that Pnm could or could not take. Actually, it's the proposed. So the proposal put forward by parties like CCAE and Pnm's proposal, which you can see parties' proposal and Pnm's proposal. So if you look at the table, it under the bill impact column, you can see that there was supposed to be a rate credit issued for the closure of San Juan Unit 1, which would have credited customers $1.76 on their bill. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the closure of proposed credit for balance of the closure of Unit 1 and Unit 4, there would have been an additional $6.42 credited to customers' bills per month. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. That equals about $8. Would you agree? $8 per month per customer?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, does $8 mean anything to you?
Yeah, $8 is $8, all right? Yeah.
And would $8, the value of $8 today be different than the value of $8 in, say, 2 years?
If you're talking about the time value of money, yes.
Okay, and I believe Ms. Gould covered that concept earlier. Would you agree that, especially for a low-income customer, if they were to receive a credit of $8 per month to their bill over the next 18 months, for example, that would be a significant amount for a low-income New Mexican?
It's $8 a month. And as far as significant, being a number person, I look at percentage, and I don't have information regarding like low income customer, how much they pay per month. But I can agree they will have $8 per month on the bill as a credit based on the party's proposal.
Do you know that one of the primary reasons low-income customers in Pnm's territory must or are forced to move from their residence is because they can't afford their electricity bills?
I don't have personal knowledge of that.
It's a matter of, a few bucks here and there, forcing people to move out of their home. So there's a number of reports that I recommend you might want to look at. In that instance, do you think $8 could help reduce a low-income person's financial strain when it comes to paying their bills, especially their monthly electric bills?
Yeah, I mean, $8, like I say, $8, $8. So it's money, it's credit off their bill, if that's what you're referring to, yes.
Okay, thank you. So another question about your experience with poverty or low-income populations. Do you know anyone that struggles to pay their monthly bills?
Personally, during the pandemic, yes, my team actually, we help to pay for the bills of some of the customers that they were fall behind. So we actually help those customers to pay their bills, whether it's portion or the whole bills. So yes, I'm aware that in our service territory, we, at least back in the pandemic, during the pandemic, we did have customers that have problems paying their bills.
Okay, so this next question is somewhat personal, but has anyone in your family experienced the pain of not being able to pay their bills on time?
No, I don't.
So you don't have that personal experience?
I don't.
Okay. So I'm going to have you turn back to that table on page 4.
Yes.
And what we see here is that Pnm is proposing not to issue the $8 credit, correct?
That's not our proposal.
It's not your proposal. So you are planning to issue the credit?
No, because our point of view is that when because we are not implementing the ETC. So we are not proposing to issue a credits.
Right. Okay. So what Pnm proposes instead is to do what with the $8 per month per customer?
Pnm's proposal is, in the next rate case, we will then look at the abandonment on the San Juan facilities and the all the investment that Pnm has made since the last rate case, and any future investment that will be within our test period. And we will have a comprehensive look at that time and to determine the rates proposal. And then the commission then can review the application and determine what just and reasonable rates are. But our proposal is to have a comprehensive look in the next rate case.
Okay, so you would you agree that that rate case is where Pnm hopes to securitize the abandonment of San Juan?
I don't know the issuance of the bond. I don't have that knowledge. I don't know when we will issue the bond.
Okay, so sorry, let's go back to Mr. Setlage's testimony, rebuttal testimony, page 4. Pnm suggests here at the row 11-2024 that there would be a significant swing or most likely in the common terminology here at the before the commission, there would be a significant shock to ratepayers if indeed the rate credit were applied at this, in 2022. Is that correct?
So you're referring the top half of the table labels parties?
The bill impact, yeah. If parties' proposal were adopted, there would be a significant impact or shock experienced by customers. And PNM puts a number on that, 27.2%, I think.
Yes, and being a number person, 27.2% is significant.
Okay. Doesn't the commission have the tools to assess, or the tools to adjust issues of rate shock in a rate case?
Yes.
But PNM here is putting forth its proposal for reduction of rate shock if PNM chooses not to apply the credit, correct?
Can you rephrase, can you ask the question again?
Here, PNM puts its proposal forward to suggest a way PNM might avoid rate shock.
I don't know whether that's the purpose of the table. I think the purpose of the table is just to show if credits were issued in August and November timeframe, and then we'll have a rate case coming in January of 2024, what that change from period to period would look like, versus if, as we suggested or proposed, wait until we file the next rate case, then we will look at all the costs in a more holistic, comprehensive way. That will what it looked like. Because look at the two proposals. The bill at 1/1/2024 under both proposals it will be the same, $64.47. That's the estimate. So the end, we end at the same place. And I think this table showing is how we get there. I mean, if we under PNM proposal, you will from current $58.88 to $64. So it's a 9.5% increase. But if we would have, implemented credit, then the steps to get there will be, a slight decrease on the bill, then a more significant decrease. But then in 1/1/2024 comes, you will see a big increase.
Yes, that is true. That's what this table is proposing, and it's a suggestion put forth by PNM. Has PNM asked its customers, and in particular its low-income customers, if they would benefit from this proposed plan, or whether they'd prefer an $8 credit now?
I don't have any personal knowledge. I don't know.
But you would agree $8 now is worth more than $8 in the future?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Okay. So if we return to this table, it's true that this is PNM's posited plan, correct?
PNM's position is in a rate case that we're going to file in the near future, then we will incorporate all the changes, including the San Juan abandonment, into the rate filing.
And it's also
Into the rate what? I'm sorry.
Rate filing.
Can you give me one moment before you ask a question? I'm about to lose my I have too many cables on my desk, and I forgot to plug the most important one in. Sorry, thank you so much. Saves the record. Thank you.
So this is just one possibility of many that could be proposed as a solution to protect ratepayers from rate shock, correct?
Yes, there's many more. I mean, there should be other options. It's not only one way.
Okay, so we could presumably issue the rate credit and come up with different ways to protect customers from rate shock.
In theory, yes. I don't know what that would look like.
But I mean, that's okay. I mean, Pnm didn't lay all the possibilities out, but those exist. So it's just good for us to know. I thank you for that answer. So I'm going to move on to a different line of questions here. The first one, we're going to move into a different territory and not even necessarily referring to any specific testimony. So these are just based upon your knowledge. You would agree, would you not, that only prudently incurred expenditures are entitled to cost recovery?
As determined by the commission?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the rate case numbers that you rely on in your and Setledge's rebuttal testimony regarding future rate amounts and percentage rate increases have perhaps not been identified with specificity?
I'm gonna object. I think this might be going beyond the scope of Mr. Setledge's testimony. I think Mr. Monroy testified as to the types of investment that have occurred between rate cases. This is not the witness that's addressing that issue.
Objection
That's
overruled.
okay. So the next question here is the rate case numbers that you rely on in your rebuttal testimony regarding future rate amounts and percentage rate increases have not been subjected to discovery, vetted by interveners or interveners experts, correct?
At least not through Mr. Setledge discovery. I have no idea whether there's any discovery that is issued or sponsored by Mr. Monroy or any other party.
Well, those numbers would be subjected to an entirely different set of discovery and all the procedures that go into a rate case. I think that's what we're aiming at here with this question. Is that correct?
Yes, in a rate case proceeding, our proposed revenue requirement will be subject to discovery.
All right, so the rate case numbers here that you rely on in the rebuttal testimony by Setledge regarding future rate amounts and percentage rate increases have not been approved by a hearing examiner or by the commission itself.
That's correct.
Okay. And without substantial evidence to prove their veracity, you would agree, would you not, that the future rate amounts and percentage rate increases may be illustrative, but they are hypothetical?
Will be subject to change when we file the rate case.
Okay, so these numbers could possibly change. And so this is just one hypothetical. If without substantial evidence to prove their legitimacy, you would agree that the future rate amounts and percentage rate increases therefore are speculative?
It is the best number that we have today to demonstrate the bill impact.
Potential bill impacts.
Yes. I am sure that the $36 million, if that's what you're referring to, for the revenue requirement in the next rate case, has support
Okay.
And- Right.
So I did a little bit of research, and I was able to discover that Pnm serves about 525,000 residential and business customers. Is that
Yeah,
about?
in the ballpark.
But I was having a harder time finding on the website, like, what is the estimate of the residential customers that you serve?
I don't know whether that is on the website, but it may be other publicly available document. Maybe the FERC Form 1, it might have number of residential customers in there.
Can
But
you
might
provide
be-
an estimate?
Yeah, I would think around 470,000.
Okay, so like 470,000 times
more or less.
8. What does that come out to? I mean, by not issuing the credit now, you're saving $8 for about 470,000 customers per month. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
Would you like me to do the calculation?
Sure.
So it's 470,000 customer. $8 a month. That will be around 3.8 million a month.
Okay, so those savings would go to Pnm if it chooses not to issue a credit.
I don't agree that it's going to Pnm. I mean, we are not issuing the credits, so our revenue will be, I guess, would not be reduced by the 3.8 million.
I mean, don't you think that in the customers' minds and at least in our minds, that credit represents the credit that is associated with the Energy Transition Act and the savings related to the abandonment of San Juan?
That is associated with the abandonment on San Juan. When we issue the bond and start collecting the ETC charge. So when we securitized the asset through the bond, when the customer is paying for that, then in order to avoid double recovery, that should be the credit. I think that is the underlying principle. When we have the ETC, when we're recovering the cost, then we should not be double recovered. So we have, the credit is appropriate.
But there's an association for your customers, which include, I'm a customer of Pnm, that links, the help that the ETA was supposed to provide to Pnm in very close association with the abandonment. Correct? I mean, that's why Pnm is authorized to issue the bonds. I mean, it wouldn't make sense. Hypothetically, Pnm could issue the bonds 18 months or 2 years or possibly even 5 or 30 years whenever it chooses to issue those bonds. But the significance of the Energy Transition Act is that the issuance of the bonds occurs close in time with the abandonment of the coal plant, correct?
Objection. This is a compound question. I think if Ms. Chan answered, I don't know which question she would be answered. I think there's been 4 questions.
Would you agree that the Energy Transition Act provided the financial securitization mechanism for PNM when it abandoned the plant?
My personal knowledge, I remember reading that, yes, but I don't know whether it say when, like when after abandonment is the issuance of bond.
So we're here today because CCAE and other parties were under the perception that the bonds were associated at a close linkage in time with the abandonment, correct?
I wasn't part of the proceeding in that.
I mean, the main dispute here is that PNM is proposing to issue the bonds whenever PNM wants to, not at the time of abandonment.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Your Honor,
Lynch? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, you cut out. I didn't hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your ruling here?
Can you defend your question?
I'm asking the witness if she agrees that the reason we're here today is because PNM is proposing to issue the bonds at some time later than the abandonment of the coal plant.
Ask that question.
We're here today, Ms. Chan, correct? Because PNM believes it can issue the bonds at some time in the future unassociated with the coal plant abandonment, correct?
My understanding is the bond issue will be issued after the abandonment. I am not aware of, well, the time, 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, a year, but is upon after the abandonment of the plant.
Okay, at some time when PNM chooses to issue the bonds. But the ETA is about the securitization for the abandonment of the coal plant, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I'm concluded. I don't have any more questions. This witness has been quite wonderful to deal with. I appreciate your time here, Ms. Chan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch.
Thank you.
Mr. Nazi?
Your Honor,
You didn't have any
but-
time.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Ms. Gould, I have you down for 60 minutes, 6-0.
Yes. I hopefully won't take all of that time. Good morning, Ms. Chan. How are you?
Good morning.
My name is Kelly Gould. I represent New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance, also known as Pnm Area. It's nice to see you today, although under unfortunate circumstances. So bear with me. I know that you didn't write this testimony, so let's just see how we can go with this. Just before I start questioning you, did you read Mr. Monroy's testimony in this phase of the case or not that either?
No, I did not.
Okay, so I might have, well, we'll just work through the best we can. If you could please turn to Pnm Area Exhibit Sc7.
Give me a minute.
Sure.
Okay. Is that a spreadsheet or table?
Yes.
Okay.
And so my questions are going to follow up on what Ms. Lynch was asking about, just slightly in a different way. So if you could please turn to Mr. Setlich's page 7 of his rebuttal. The table that is called Table MJS Rebuttal -3.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. So Ms. Lynch was talking about a different table that represented 600 kilowatt hour residential customer. This table represents 300 kilowatt hour residential customer, but it's essentially the same, just with different values. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if we start on the first line, 7-1-22, it says current base rate bill. And you would agree that that this example shows a bill of $30.49. Is that correct?
Hearing examiner, I think Ms. Gould needs to lay a foundation. I don't know where Pnm Exhibit Sc7 came in. It was
I'm sorry, please repeat. I lost you after lay a foundation.
Ms. Gould needs to lay a foundation. I'm not sure where Pnm Exhibit Sc7 is coming from, what question it answered.
It's my exhibit from my witnesses, and I'm getting to my question. I am laying a foundation as we speak.
Okay. The witness just needs to understand where the table came from.
I'm referring to Mr. Setlich's testimony, and I'm laying a foundation as we speak. She has the table out so she can look at it, so I can lay a foundation.
Great, Ms. Gould.
Okay, so if we go to on Mr. Setlich's table, MSJ Rebuttal -3, the current bill that's in this table for that 300 kilowatt hour residential customer is $30.49. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we went through this with Ms. Lynch, but the next line would be the proposed credit for San Juan Unit 1. And that would be a credit of $1.76, correct?
That's correct.
And then the next line is the proposed credit for the balance of San Juan Unit 4 and the shared resources. And that would be a credit of $6.43, correct?
Yes.
And then my understanding of this table is that the first credit would go into effect for 2 months, 8-1 and 9-1.
Correct.
And then the combined values of $1.76, 76 and $6.43, that would go into effect starting 10-1/22, correct?
Yeah, actually it should be 1/1 November.
Okay. Well, assuming that the values in this are correct, because that's what my table is based on.
Yes.
If we turn to NM Area Exhibit SC23, if you look at the first kind of section under 300 kilowatt hours, and you see the list of the months, right? And then this is the current customer bill. This number is the same as the number that we just talked about on Mr. Setlich's table, correct?
Correct.
And then if you go to that last column, it says customer savings. So the 1.76, that would be for 1 month and August, and then the 1.76 would be for September, correct?
Correct.
And then the $8.19, that would be the sum of $1.76 and $6.43. Is that correct?
Yes, the cumulative savings, right?
Correct.
You're talking about, yes.
And would that be accurate? So in the months after, I know you said that it would actually start in November, but pursuant to this table, in the month after October, that would be the amount of the credit, the $8.19.
Correct.
So then this exhibit that I have shared with you basically just sums the credits through December 2023, which is the last month of the credit pursuant to this table, because on this table it says on January 1st, 2024, there would be an impact of a rate case and an ETC charge. Is that correct?
Correct.
So what this table, Pnm Area Exhibit SC23 is trying to show is the total savings of the rate credit pursuant to Mr. Setlage's chart from 7/1/2022 until 1/1/2024. Would that be your understanding of this table?
Yes.
And do the values in this table look accurate and correct? Or
Yes.
are they the same values that are in Mr. Setlage's table?
Right.
And so line 19, what would the total rate credit savings be for this customer who uses 300 kilowatt hours?
$126.37.
Okay,
I'm sorry, what was that amount again?
$126.37.
and if you will take the high number, if we go back to Mr. Setlage's table, after the rate case and the implementation of the ETCs, my understanding of his table is that the bill impact would go up to $34.23. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, so if we take $126.37, which is the savings, the rate credit savings, and we divide that by the new customer bill, that savings would equal over 3 months of a bill for that customer, 3 free months. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
So that line 21 is 3.69, which would show that if you add it all up, that customer would have over three months of a free bill, free electricity bill.
It will show that the total credit during the period, $126.37 is, as you show in this table, line 21 is 3.69 times of the new bill that we estimate to be effective 1/1/2024.
Okay, thank you. Can we just go back then to table page 4 of Mr. Setlage's rebuttal, MJS rebuttal dash 1. It's the table that Ms. Lynch was talking about that refers to the 600 kilowatt hour residential customer.
Yes, I'm there.
If we could just look through without maybe the same level of detail, the second kind of table in my exhibit. And I did notice a slight error in Mr. Setlage's table. It's not significant, but if you subtract, let me do it myself, hold on. If you subtract 57.12, if you subtract $50.69 from that, the credit for San Juan, for the balance of San Juan would actually be $6.43, correct? Not $6.42.
Yeah, that must be the rounding.
Yeah, rounding. Yeah, so just so you know, in my table, we use the credit of $6.43, just to be clear. So if we just walk through this, I'm on line 1 of my table. The $58.88 is the current bill that's listed in Mr. Setlage's table, correct?
Yes,
And then the credit that would be applied for 2 months is the $1.76, correct?
correct.
And then as I noted, because I use $6.43, the credit for the remaining months would be $8.19. That's listed on my table. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so can we agree that this second portion of the table, the total credit for customers that use 600 kilowatt hours would be $126.37?
yes,
Okay, and that would be approximately, if we use the number on Mr. Setlage's table of the new bill amount of $64.47, the savings divided by that new bill amount would be approximately 2 free electricity bills for that customer,
it's about, 2 months.
2 months.
Mhm.
Okay, and then turning to page 6 of Mr. Setlage's testimony, just doing basically the same math. We start out with a bill of $130.72, correct?
Yes,
And then we have 2 months of savings for San Juan Unit 1 of $4.58, correct?
yes,
And then the remaining months, the savings would be $21.34, which would be $4.58 plus the $16.76. Is that correct?
yes,
And so the total savings for this customer that used 1,200 kilowatt hours would be approximately $329.26. Is that correct?
yes, based on the Area Exhibit SC-23. Yes,
Yes. And that's based on Mr. Setlage's numbers. Is that correct?
yes. I haven't summed up the numbers, but I assume that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. But it looks, from this table, it looks accurate. I mean, you could sum them up. You could do 21 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 21 times 15 plus 4, 4 times 2.
Yep. Yes, it's correct.
Okay, great. Excuse me, and that using the final bill amount that Mr. Setladge uses of $143.07, the total savings for this customer would be over two months of free bills. Is that correct?
2.3.
Okay, thank you.
What was your answer? I didn't hear that.
Yes, 2.3.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, I move to admit Pnm Area Exhibit SC23 into the record.
Any objection?
No objection.
Pnm Area Exhibit SV-23 is admitted.
Thank you. And Mr. Setlage's and your testimony here today is that you are arguing against these customer savings because you think that customers would be confused by these savings?
I think the customers could be confused. That's one possibility. And then also we are looking at the swing of the bills from month to month. And then at the end, and 1/1/2024, to see that significant increase from the previous month.
Do you think customers get confused when they get a credit on their credit card statement because they return something?
I don't think so, but our bill, have you seen our bill? It's pretty complicated, and I don't know. I mean, I cannot speak to all the customers, but when they see a swing from month to month on their total bill, I think they will have questioned why and then the reason.
I know you weren't involved in the prior phase of this case, Ms. Chan, but are you aware if Pnm made an argument against the rate credit because customers would be confused?
I don't have any knowledge. I don't know.
Okay. So are you familiar with Rule 530, Ms. Chan?
Yeah, yes,
Can you describe what it is?
it's the information that we need to include, especially in a rate case, all the supporting documents or schedules.
And those are required for the commission to approve new rates, is that correct?
Yes,
Did you or any other Pnm witness file any of the Rule 530 schedules in this case?
not that I'm aware of.
When determining the impact of a rate case here in these tables, you just assumed that the revenue requirement of 36 million would be approved by the commission, is that correct?
I think in order to show the bill impact, that is an assumption of these 36 million is the revenue requirement that will be approved. It's an assumption.
And wouldn't those 530 schedules be required for the commission to determine whether or not the 36 million revenue requirement was reasonable?
In a rate case setting, yes.
Okay. And this question you might not know, but I'm going to have you turn to the direct testimony, the 2022 direct testimony of Henry Monroy, page 14. And keep open Mr. Setlage's rebuttal testimony. My question to you is, if that 36 million that Mr. Settlage uses to show the bill impact of a rate case, if that came from Mr. Monroy's testimony, page 14, Pnm table HEM2.
And for the record, this is Pnm Exhibit Sc7. Is that correct, Ms. Gould?
I'm sorry, I can look at Dropbox. I don't have the PN.
Well, that's okay. It's his April 1st direct testimony, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
The 2022 direct testimony. Do you know, Ms. Chan, if on that table it says there's a range of estimated revenue requirements that Mr. Monroy calculated, and it's between 23 million and 36 million?
Yes.
Do you know if that's where Mr. Settlage got the 36 million figure from?
Yes.
That is, you do know?
Yes, that's what he used.
Okay. And there's a range there in Mr. Monroy's testimony. The range is between 23 million and 36 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you know, Mr. Monroy created this table. These numbers were based on a June 2021 rate case. Do you know? Is that correct?
I don't have knowledge. I don't know.
If you turn to page 13 of Mr. Monroy's testimony and read line 13, you can read the whole question if you want, and then I can ask my question again.
Okay, give a minute.
Yes, of course.
Okay, I read it.
My understanding of this portion of Mr. Monroy's testimony and the purpose for PNM table HEM-2 was to show the proposed customer savings that customers experienced from PNM not filing a rate case in 2022. Is that your understanding?
My understanding, at least reading the queue, the questions and looking at the table, this is saying that back in 2021, June, if we would have filed a rate case, those the numbers 23 million, 36 million is the range, taking into consideration the closure of San Juan plus the replacement and other investment.
Okay, thank you. So those numbers were based on a 2021 rate case. Is that your understanding?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
I still didn't get that that was her understanding. So,
Yes.
okay, great, thank you. So if we flip back to Mr. Setlage's rebuttal. On any of these tables, so these tables, the estimates of the impact of the rate case is based on 2021 numbers, not, as he states here, 2024 numbers. Is that correct?
I think what he meant is that those are the best number that we had when filed a rebuttal testimony, and those were the number that he based it on to calculate the bill impact, and those will be, and assuming those are the best available number, and the next rate case that will be effective January 1 of 2024. So that's what it shows, because it's the best number that we had when he prepared the table. Those are the 2021 numbers.
Okay, so they're not numbers based on a 2024 revenue requirement, correct?
At least according to Mr. Monroy's testimony, yes, that's referring to June 2021 rate case.
Okay, and Mr. Settlage took the high end of Mr. Monroy's 2021 rate case revenue requirement estimate. Is that correct?
Yes, the 36 million.
And no PNM witness filed any of the data requests listed in 530.
I'm sorry, I lost your question.
And no PNM witness filed any of the data requirements listed in Rule 530 just to substantiate this 36 million number. I believe you previously testified to that. So the estimated impact of the rate case number on these charts is just purely hypothetical. Is that correct?
It is a estimate based on best available data.
Okay, sorry, thank you. And there's no way for the commission to determine the validity of this number. Is that correct?
Not from what we file. But at the same time, we're not asking for approval of the revenue requirement of 36 million. This is just demonstrate with best available data, what would that bill impact look like?
So my last couple questions, Mr. Settlage testifies, in my understanding, that if the commission were to order PNM and enforce PNM to issue the rate credit at the time of abandonment, and PNM, let me start over. My understanding of these tables is showing what would happen if the rate credit was issued at abandonment and PNM waited to issue the bonds at the time of the next rate case. Is that your understanding?
Objection. Can I just ask, she said these tables. I'm no longer sure what Ms. Gould is referring to.
Sure, sorry, these tables in Mr. Sutledge's testimony, table MJS rebuttal 2, MJS rebuttal 1, and MJS rebuttal 3. These tables are showing a hypothetical, or showing an example of what might happen if the commission issues the rate credit at the time of abandonment and PNM waits to issue the bonds until the time of its next rate case. And here it says 1-1-2024. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And these tables are meant to show that this would produce a roller coaster effect. Is that correct?
It will show it will show swings. Yes, big
Swings,
swings.
If the rate credit was ordered at the time of abandonment and PNM issued the bonds at the same time, wouldn't that smooth out this roller coaster effect that Mr. Sutledge talks about in his testimony?
If the credits is aligned with the same time as the ETC will align with the credit, then will be, yes, it will. So if you look at Mr. Sutledge or Pnm Exhibit MJS-3 rebuttal, then the $1.90, which is under column D, that will be netted against the credits.
And that would smooth out the roller coaster effect.
That will
The
reduce.
swings.
That will reduce the credit amount because that will be $1.90 for the ETC charge.
So I guess my question is, these swings that Mr. Sutledge testifies about, aren't they exacerbated by PNM delaying the issuance of the bonds?
Show a different numbers for sure.
Doesn't it create a higher, a larger swing?
Yes, based on those numbers.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chan. Those are all of
Welcome.
my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. Mr. Marks indicated that he was in a mediation today, so Sierra Club is not present to cross-examine, Ms. Chan. So let's move on to San Juan delegation. Mr. Powell.
Your Honor, we do not have any questions for this witness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Albright, you have 15 minutes. Are you there? There you are.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Good morning, Ms. Chan. How are you this morning?
Good. How are you, Mr. Albright?
I'm doing well, thanks. I am Jeff Albright with J. Albright Law LLC, representing Bernalillo County. First, I want to thank you for jumping into the breach here to assume Mr. Sutledge's testimony. It was certainly not a de minimis task by any means, so appreciate your willing to step forward. I just have a few questions. Some of them go back to the discussions you had with Ms. Lynch earlier on. So I want to just lay a little bit of foundation first. First of all, the San Juan Generating Station number 1, the abandonment of that, isn't it true that resource will be removed from PNM books at the time of abandonment?
As I understand, yes, that's probably Mr. Monroy's question, but my understanding is yes.
Okay. And for the rate case that's been discussed ad nauseum at this point that you're proposing, that would be for a future test year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And if the likely abandonment occurs at September 30th, 2022, The rate case that's being proposed, at least from testimony we've heard, and I just want to make sure it's your understanding as well, would not go into effect until roughly January 1 of 2024. Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you don't issue the rate credit until the rate case, going back to I want to go back to some questions that Ms. Lynch asked. Assuming the $8 for residential customers, believe you testified that comes to about a total of about $3.76 million per month, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so over the course of 12 months, which would at least be between September 30 of this year and the rate case, in fact, it's a little over that, that's $45.1 million during that time frame per year if extended over the months. So my question is, where does that money go? If it's not given as a rate credit, where's the $45 million go?
I don't think let me step back. Even though with San Juan abandonment, customers still receiving service from Pnm. I mean, our rate is based on the overall cost to serve the customer and deliver service. So even though San Juan is abandoned, but we still incur costs to provide service to the customer. The customers still receiving electricity from Pnm. So I don't think the 40-something million that you quote is going anywhere. I mean, the cost to serve the customer is still there. Just because San Juan is abandoned, we still have to deliver service. We still have to incur costs to deliver that service. So I don't think if you are saying that we are saving $45 million and keeping it, I don't agree it, and I don't see it.
I'm just asking where it goes, because if it's not refunded to the customers and there isn't a change in the bills because you have existing rates right now that are in effect, new rates would not go in effect until after the rate case, particularly using a future test year. There's a mismatch there that I just don't understand. But if you don't know, you don't know. But it just doesn't add up to me.
Well, but we also incur, I think according to Mr. Monroy's testimony, Pnm make additional investment, increase the cost to serve the customer until the next rate case that we can include it in the rate case. So it's not just a static, like here is the cost to serve, and then this is the cost to serve until the next rate case. We have additional cost that, at least for the additional cost that we incur compared to the revenue that we receive, we need to receive sufficient revenue to cover the cost, not a particular investment per se. So I don't think, I don't think we're saving $45 million. You won't see it because that's other costs that Pnm incur. Until a rate case is filed, we don't know what the revenue requirement, the cost to serve the customer is.
But you don't increase or you don't change the cost to the consumers between rate cases, correct?
Yes, because the rates approved in that last rate case, just and reasonable, that's the rate that we're going to charge customer until the next rate case.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to a couple other questions. Would you turn to Mr. Setlich's testimony at page 4, please?
Mr. Albright, which testimony?
This is the direct testimony of April 1st, page 4.
April 1st. Give me a minute. Okay. Okay. April 1st or April 20th in response to April 1st procedural?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Yes.
sorry. You're correct. It is April 20th testimony in response to the April 1st procedural order.
Okay.
My apologies. And I'd like to focus on lines 7 through 15. It discusses the requirements and common requirements for units 1 and 4.
Can you give me the page?
Page 4.
Page 4, okay. And line?
Between 7 and 15. Would you just read that, but you don't need to read it out loud?
Okay. Yes, I read it.
Okay. With regard to the San Juan Unit 4, what's your understanding of its projected retirement date?
September 30th?
I'm talking Unit 4 now, not Unit 1.
Yes, Unit 4, September 30th.
Okay. And the retirement for Unit 1?
June 30th.
And with regard to the common equipment, why isn't there a proration done with regard to the common equipment between units 1 and 4? Since you have a different date in retirement.
I
or
don't know.
abandonment.
I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Hearing Examiner, I think a number of my other questions have already been asked and answered, so I have no further questions for Ms. Chan. Ms. Chan, thank you very much for your testimony today. Certainly appreciate it,
Thank you.
particularly under the circumstances. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Albright. Mr. Borman, do you have any cross-examination for Ms. Chan?
I'm sure Ms. Chan is going to be really disappointed to learn that I do not.
Chief Hearing Examiner Sanauer, good morning.
Good morning. I do just have a few questions, Ms. Chan. You were talking with Ms. Lynch, I think, about tools that are available to mitigate the rate impact of a large rate increase to customers. Do you recall that?
To low-income customer?
To any customer?
Yes.
Okay. Could you describe what some of those tools are?
I think in past rate cases, we have phase-in of the rate increase. That's one that came to mind.
Are there any others?
I mean, I cannot think of any right now.
Were you involved in Pnm's last rate case, 16-00276-UT?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware that a phase-in was adopted in that case?
Yes, that's what I was referring to. Yes.
Okay. Do you recall any other cases in which there were phase-ins of Pnm rates?
Not that I was involved with.
Okay. Any that you're aware of that you were not involved with?
Not that came to mind. Nothing came to mind.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanauer. Well, Ms. Chan, we thank you so much for as I said before, stepping into the breach and taking over for Mr. Settlage. And again, for Mr. Settlage, I hope he's recovering and doing well. But as for you, thank you so much. Although I must ask, and I'm sorry, because I'm rushing to allow you to get on with your day, Mr. Williger, obviously you're entitled to redirect. Do you have any redirect?
I just have a few questions for Ms. Chan.
Sure.
If I can.
Of course.
Thank you, hearing examiner. So Ms. Chan, you were asked some questions from Ms. Lynch about Mr. Settlage's testimony, and particularly a table in his direct testimony. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And I think Ms. Lynch kept inferring that this is Pnm's plan or Pnm's suggestion in terms of not issuing a rate credit. And can you describe for us in the context of this show cause if what the information that Mr. Settlage was presenting has anything to do with a Pnm plan?
Pnm's plan referring to issuance of the bond?
No, I guess just in terms of the rate impact that you were discussing and the rate credit. Let me ask it another way. Is Pnm obligated to issue a rate credit at this juncture, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
And when would Pnm, do you know under the ETA when Pnm would be obligated to issue a rate credit?
My understanding is when we start charging customer the ETC charge.
Okay. And then you had a question from Ms. Gould that asked you, are customers confused when they get a credit on their credit card statement? Do you remember that question?
Yes.
Is this situation anything like a customer getting a credit on their credit card statement from your perspective?
Not quite. And if a customer receives a credit on a credit card, that will be, I assume, is return of some goods or some disputes on the service. However, Pnm still delivering service to the customer. So if you are talking about credit card, they are not the same. It's nothing to return. Customer is still receiving service from Pnm.
That's all my questions, hearing examiner.
Thank you, Mr. Williger. Again, Ms. Chan, thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Great seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you. You're excused.
Thanks.
Sir, don't parties get the opportunity for a follow-up question?
Not necessarily. Do you have something pressing that you'd like to ask Ms. Chan?
I just have one question, yes.
Ms. Chan, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Lynch.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chan, for taking this question. It follows up upon this strand or this thread that Pnm picked up on regarding a question by Ms. Gould. Ms. Gould pointed out, and you affirmed that Pnm thinks customers will be confused by the savings and the possible increase in the future on their energy bills. Is that correct?
Hearing examiner, may I ask, I thought the follow-up questions were in response to questions from the hearing examiners, not follow-up questions in response to questions from other parties. I mean, I'm just trying to clarify. Obviously, it's your decision, but.
Let's just get through this. Go ahead.
Thank you. So my question for you, Ms. Chan, following that thread is that, did Pnm consult with customers to determine that customers will be confused by savings and a possible increase in the future on their bill?
I have no personal knowledge that we talk to customers specifically about the San Juan abandonment. I wasn't involved if there's any communication on, but I do understand from personal experience, every time when we have a rate case, we have a change in rate, that's a lot of question from customers, and we have an extensive communication as far as, rate changes and rate increase.
Okay, so just to clarify, PNM did not consult with customers whether this would be confusing to them, correct?
I cannot say no. I just not involved and I don't have personal knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Williger, anything on this?
No, thank you.
Okay. Morning, Mr. Marks.
Good morning, Mr. Medeiros.
We're about to excuse Ms. Chan.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I got here in time, but I don't think I have any questions. So.
Okay, sure. All right, Ms. Chan, again, thank you so much for your patience and your always excellent testimony before the commission.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, I have something that came up in another case that I need to address. So let's take 15 minutes and then we'll come back at around 10:48, 10:49 or so, and have Mr. Reynolds testify for staff. And then we'll address briefing and close the hearing. All right, we'll see you then. Thank you.
Hey, John.
Oh, how are you, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Fine, thank you.
Is this going to be the last time you might be testifying?
Looks that way.
Oh, dear. I'm dreading this day. Sincerely.
Actually, his last hearing, maybe.
I might be having some internet. Looks like my picture is.
I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Are you hearing me okay?
I'm hearing you fine, John.
Okay.
Yeah, is this better now?
A little bit.
Okay, is that better?
That's better.
All right, it was on the wrong mic on Zoom for some reason. It didn't switch over. All right, good morning. Mr. Borman, is staff prepared to call its witness?
Yes, I am. Utility Division staff calls John Reynolds, please.
I swear him in.
Yes, please.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds, good morning.
Good morning.
By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission as the Utility Division Director.
As part of your duties in that position, did you review the joint motion for order to show cause along with the testimony that's been filed in this proceeding?
Yes, I have.
And based upon that review, did you prepare testimony regarding that joint motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you should have before you a document marked as Staff Exhibit SC-1. Do you have that?
I have my prepared responsive testimony in this case dated May 11th, 2022. Okay. Is that the one you're referring to?
That is the document that has been uploaded to Dropbox as Staff Exhibit SC-1.
Okay, I do have that in front of me.
Okay. Was your direct testimony Staff Exhibit SC-1 prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or corrections to Staff Exhibit SC-1?
None other than those that have been marked on the exhibit.
Okay, can you walk us through those really quickly, just so we have those on the record?
On page 8, line 15, the phrase "and the cost of bonds and bond issuance" should be deleted.
Okay.
On page 11, line 18, the year 2022 should be changed to 2020. And on page 15, line 9, toward the end, the word "than," THAN, should be inserted between "other" and "unilateral."
Are those all your corrections?
Yes.
Okay. If I asked you today the same questions as are set forth in Staff Exhibit SC-1, would your answers be the same as you have just corrected them?
Yes.
Are those answers true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
You adopt Staff Exhibit SC-1 as your sworn testimony in this matter?
I do.
Thank you. At this time, I move admission of Staff Exhibit SC1.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, Staff Exhibit SC-1 is admitted.
Mr. Reynolds is available for examination.
Thank you, Mr. Warman. I'm going to go in order that we have on Exhibit B to the pre-hearing order, the Excel spreadsheet. CCAE and Prosperity Works. Ms. Lynch, do you have any non-friendly cross-examination for Mr. Reynolds?
No.
Okay. And the only other besides Pnm, which I'll get to next, Mr. Alvidrez, was Mr. Albright for Bernalillo County. You reserve 7 minutes of non-friendly cross-examination with Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, Mr. Hearing Examiner, I have.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Reynolds.
Morning, Mr. Albright.
I'm Jeff Albright with J. Albright Law LLC on behalf of Bernalillo County. I do have some questions and clarifications that I'd like you to make. The question has come up and some of the other testimony has been presented concerning the transactional costs that are involved with the issuance of the securitization bonds. And I just want to confirm that your position was that the securitization bonds should be issued separately for Unit 1 and Unit 4. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So wouldn't that result in duplicative costs for the consumer with regard to issuing it in multiple tranches as opposed, or multiple securitization packages, as opposed to doing it once with a consolidated package?
To the best of my knowledge, there's no information in the record about that, about whether the cost of issuing 2 tranches would be more than the cost of issuing a single tranche. And I also believe that the financing order provides for some flexibility to Pnm to issue the bond in possibly more than one single transaction or issuance.
But don't they have to get a third party to do that and issue the bonds and go through that process? And I don't see where there would be any savings for the consumer if you have to go through the process twice. And well, let me back up and lay some additional foundation. And the Unit 1 and Unit 4 are going to be abandoned at different times, correct? As proposed.
That's correct, and actually, if I could just finish what I intended to add before you followed up, is that was one of the elements that reasons that I suggested but my recommendation is to do this in 2 steps, because the abandonment will take place in at least 2 steps.
But how can we avoid, I won't say necessarily doubling costs, but how can we avoid for the consumer having to go through that process twice, getting underwriters, having the third party, and also by doing that, aren't we looking at different, potentially different interest rates?
I think we likely are looking at different interest rates, but we don't know what those interest rates will be. They could, the first tranche could be at a higher rate than the second tranche, or vice versa. We just don't have that information. And I think it's generally been agreed that the objective is not to time the issuance to get lower interest rates. And so I just don't know that that's something we can control. And certainly the commission could could review this at some appropriate point in time. And if there is some suggestion that Pnm was not prudent in the way they issued the bonds.
Have you looked at any other states with regard to a similar situation where securitization has been done in stages?
I have not, no.
Do you have any thoughts as to how we could avoid the additional cost to consumers by linking the two together as opposed to issuing them in separate iterations?
I don't have a feel for that. I mean, at this point, it's Pnm's decision to, Pnm's abandonment plans are Pnm's abandonment plans. And so how they choose to abandon San Juan is up to them. And if it provides for 2 tranches or 2 issuances, and there are duplicate costs, I think those are legitimate for the commission to review.
Do you agree or disagree with the statement that's been made by other witnesses, particularly Pnm witnesses, that if you have a larger securitization package, dollar-wise, that you're likely to get a more favorable response in the market?
I don't have any reason to disagree with that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Thank you, Mr. Albright. Mr. Albright, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hearing Examiner and colleagues. I do have a follow-up question based on questions from Mr. Albright, and that is, if I understand your proposal, Mr. Reynolds, you're not proposing that Pnm be given any discretion about issuing 2 sets of bond issuance. Is that correct? Your proposal is that they be ordered to have 1 set of bond issuance at the time Unit 1 is abandoned, and then a second bond issuance at the time Unit 4 is abandoned. Is that correct?
That is my recommendation, yes.
So under that scenario, if the commission adopted your recommendation, Pnm would not have any flexibility in terms of the timing of the bond issuance. Isn't that also correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, sir. Chief Shanauer.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, I apologize. I did not reserve any time for staff witness Mr. Reynolds because I presumed that anything would necessarily be friendly. However, I do have a question that is neutral that would be helpful, I believe. Just one question.
I will allow it. Go ahead, Ms. Beatles.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds, are you aware that the Energy Transition Act authorizes the commission to retain bond counsel to play a role in the bonding transactions and oversee the pricing, marketing, and structuring? And my question is, are you aware of that provision in the Energy Transition Act? And has the commission considered retaining bond counsel for that purpose?
Yes, Ms. Beatles, I'm aware that the commission can hire bond counsel to advise the commission about the issuance of a bond, and that the cost of retaining that bond counsel would be recovered through the securitization. But I'm not aware that the commission has engaged a bond counsel in that respect.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Beatles. Chief Shanauer.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds, good morning.
Morning.
Were you present for some of the testimony or watching some of the testimony over the last few days where the concern over the so-called roller coaster effect would happen or transpire, arguably, if the rate credit is ordered by the commission?
Yes, I've watched most of that, I believe, yes.
Wondering what your opinion is of whether you feel there are tools to smooth or level off that roller coaster effect in the next Pnm rate making proceeding, the next base rate case.
I think the roller coaster effect needs to consider not just the rate credits and not just the rates that result from the next rate case, but also from the impact of the energy transition charge. And that's one of the reasons that I'm recommending that the commission order PNM to issue the bond so that the transition charge can be implemented, and that the commission further order PNM to implement a rate credit. So the rate credit would, to a certain extent, offset the energy transition charge. So that being said,
that being said, I'm aware that there's concern about the roller coaster impact and the size of the revenue requirement increase that maybe result from the early rate credit and the later rate case. I think that the interest of public interest, the interest of ratepayers is such that the double recovery that we think is may take place in the absence of such an order, I think needs to be weighed against the potential roller coaster. And I think that, the customers, the ratepayers deserve the rate credit sooner rather than later. I mean, we are in an inflationary environment, and to just accumulate the value of the rate credit and then deal with it in the next case, I think is problematic and challenging, and other than smoothing it out as Ms. Chen suggested, or phasing in rates to try to smooth things out, I'm not aware of other tools to smooth out rates. Of course, whatever rate increase PNM might be entitled to is subject to going through with a fine-tooth comb in the rate case, the cost of service, all elements. Isn't that true?
That is true, and that I testified to that presumption that PNM is making about the under recoveries that they're alleging. I think those are subject to scrutiny and discovery and review by staff and interveners and hearing examiners and the commission. And so that is an open question, and so it's speculative at this point to draw too many conclusions from the outcome of a future rate case.
Do you know whether that T&D rider, that proposed T&D rider, it's not proposed yet, but is that embedded in the 36 million estimated increase, or there's a 23 million and a $36 million estimate in Mr. Setledge's testimony and Mr. Monroy's testimony. Do you know whether that T&D rider is included in that, the transmission and distribution rider?
I haven't looked at the data to support the impact of including their investments and that they've made to date, and the transmission and distribution impact. Right, I know what I've heard from witnesses in this hearing, but beyond that, I can't say that I have verified that.
Probably haven't been presented any of that data yet either.
No, I'm not aware of the data unless it's in support of that 1.2 billion or the 23 to 36 million revenue increase.
Let me ask you about double recovery. Is it staff's assertion that if Pnm's revised plan, and by revised plan, I mean Pnm's proposal to delink or disconnect the abandonment from the issuance of the securitized bonds, the energy transition bonds, that this revised plan that Pnm did not announce to the world or to the commission or to the public, whether this revised plan will result in a double recovery. Is that staff's assertion?
Yes, it is. It's in short, yes. And I think in my view is that Pnm has made the argument that any rate credit or rate adjustment should take place when the energy transition charge is implemented, which would follow the issuance of the bond. And Pnm has added the linkage of those two steps to a rate case and a conclusion of a rate case. And there's no, I know that Pnm has stated many times what's not in the ETA or in the financing order, and linking the rate case as a prerequisite to issuing a bond is not in the ETA and the financing RD to the best of my knowledge. And so that results in double recovery in staff's view.
Well, how do you respond to Pnm's assertions from several of its witnesses and perhaps in briefing as well, that staff and other parties are wrong about there being a double recovery under its revised plan? I
mean, I disagree. I think that Pnm is being somewhat, what's that stated? I think they're trying to defend the impact of numerous deferrals of their rate case applications, and which they have done, partly because of the pandemic, partly because of the merger, and for maybe other reasons now. But if Pnm feels like their rates are insufficient to cover the cost to operate safely, reliably, and serve customers, then they need to file a rate case. They could have filed a rate case as soon as the last merger case decision was made. They're choosing not to do that. And so for them to say that they're under recovering, and as I testified, are trying to trade that off against $98 million a year that they're over recovering, I think that's a silent bargain that needs to be transparent. In my view, that is the heart of the double recovery.
When the units are abandoned, Pnm asserts that the units will be placed in a regulatory asset, and that the company will no longer be receiving a return or recording a return on or of the investments. How do you respond to that?
The regulatory asset, it will be based on essentially the depreciation will freeze at that point in time and will be recorded as a regulatory asset. The investment will be, and so that, and in the post the creation of the regulatory asset, in my view, Pnm will be recovering depreciation expenses that it is not incurring, and that's how I respond to it. And I think that is unfair to ratepayers. That's my response to Pnm.
And finally, you're aware that Pnm's arguing that under the ETA, the commission has no authority to compel the issuance of the bonds. Isn't that right?
I believe that's what they're saying.
And still your testimony is that the commission should require the issuance of the bonds?
I don't believe that that the commission does not have that authority. I have not seen, I don't see any language to that effect in the ETA or the financing RD.
Okay. Mr. Borman, any redirect?
Thank you, Mr. Maderos. The only redirect I have is to thank Mr. Reynolds and tell him on the record that he's going to be missed.
Can I say in return that on the record that I'm going to miss everyone here?
Well,
it's been a treat.
Well, with that, I'm not going to allow any follow-up because I don't want to spoil the moment, except to say that I second everything that Mr. Borman said. We're going to be sorely missed. It's been a true pleasure, and you've helped the commission so much over the years in understanding issues and guiding the utility division. So it's my honor to say you truly be missed, and best of luck in retirement, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds is excused.
Hi, John.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. All right, we've reached the conclusion of the evidentiary phase of this proceeding, this show cause proceeding. And it's time to address post-hearing matters. I guess Chief Hearing Examiner Schanauer and I will be issuing probably later today a briefing order that will specify some issues that we feel the parties should definitely address. But we also say in the briefing order that it's not an all-inclusive, exhaustive list of issues, and that the parties should brief any issues that they believe should be briefed in their briefs in chief. And I guess I will stop with that introduction and ask whether there are any questions at this point. I'm going to set timing for the briefs and also for any suggested corrections to the transcript of the evidentiary hearing. I'll set the deadlines for that. But are there any questions or comments at this point? I'll open the floor. I'll start with the joint movements.
Not so far. Oh, well, I'm sorry, we're not the joint movements.
Right.
Used to being the joint part of the joint applicant.
I know. That's why I made Mr. Terry your witness the other day. Ms. Beatles?
Nothing, like Mr. Alvidra said, so far, I recognize the time pressure that the hearing examiners are under, so I expect an expedited briefing schedule.
That's a solid expectation. And forgive me in advance for what we're about to set, but we have really very little time to address a complicated set of issues. Ms. Zur, Ms. Lynch, either one of you, anything at this point? No?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Alvidrez?
No, sir, not at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the interveners? Ms. Gould?
Hearing Examiner Kelly Gould, do we have a time when we can expect the transcripts?
Good question. Ms. Gonzalez?
They've been ordered expedited. They're going to get the first one later today and then subsequently as we go along. So I will have Tuesdays tomorrow and Wednesdays and Thursdays. You know, I've got 3 days, so from each successive day. So they will be on time. I don't foresee any issues at all.
And
if I can get them early, I will get them early. So
Never missed a deadline yet. So Ms. Gould and to the rest of the parties, if you go to the YouTube channel, the Commission's YouTube channel, these evidentiary hearings are recorded. And so in the meantime, while you're waiting for the transcripts and preparing your briefs, you can always refer to the for the unofficial, you know, in preparation, you can look at I suggest that you look at the recordings on YouTube. So that hopefully won't slow things down, will actually help speed things up. So if there's nothing else, then we will be issuing that briefing order. And in the briefing order, we will require briefs in chief to be filed by Friday, June 3rd, 2022. Suggested corrections to the transcript of the evidentiary hearings should also be filed by June 3, 2022. And then we will require response briefs by June 9, 2022. Chief Schanauer, do you have anything to add before we conclude the hearing?
No, I think that covers it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll allow one last chance. Is there anything, now that we've set the briefing schedule, we will have a specific set of issues to brief. You have the briefing schedule. Is there anything else besides that the parties would like to address before I conclude the hearing, starting with the joint movements? Nothing from the joint movements. Okay, Pnm?
Nothing from Pnm, thank you.
Any of the interveners or staff?
Nothing from staff.
Mr. Medeiros?
Yes, sir.
I think I know the answer to this, but to confirm, would the hearing examiners have a preference for consolidated briefing as opposed to multiple briefs? I mean, surely that there won't be just two briefs, but if parties can collaborate, would that be of benefit to the hearing examiners?
Consolidated briefing in terms of, I'm not.
Joint briefing, rather.
Oh, as in interveners join with joint movements and file. Yeah, actually, that would be very helpful. So that we could to the extent that is feasible and the parties are amenable to it, unless there's objection to that approach, I think the hearing examiners and the commission would appreciate it. Definitely. So that's a good idea, unless there's some objection to that approach.
So just to clarify, the approach is that's preferable, but it's not a requirement, clearly, right?
Clearly not.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay. All right, very well. With nothing else to address at this time, and to thank the parties very much for their cooperation in concluding this hearing on time, and for acting very civilly and very professionally during the whole course of this evidentiary hearing. And with that, if there's nothing else to address, this matter is taken under advisement and the hearing is concluded. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
long weekend.
hearing examiners and colleagues.